Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today I want to talk about trauma and specifically how we use the word trauma. And listen, I am not the trauma police at all, but I just wanted to talk about this through the lens of someone that hasn't experienced it themselves and has used the word trauma to just very loosely. And I have recognized that it's something, it's not like I want to blame, our generation, but I feel like because it's something that I hear get thrown around very loosely, I have subconsciously picked it up and I have used it to describe pretty mundane hardships, to be honest. And I feel like we don't realize the harm that this causes. And to be honest, this is another kind of like a follow-up of the video that I was talking about before, how we're using the word anxiety, depression, OCD, PTSD and things like that very loosely without actually understanding the meaning behind it. And just to quickly give you guys a definition, individual trauma results from an event, series of events, or set of circumstances that is experienced by an individual as physically or emotionally harmful or threatening, and that can have lasting adverse effects on the individual's functioning and physical, social, emotional well-being. Okay, like I said before, I think that we have used the word just very, very loosely and lightly, and I have gone on Reddit just to see some other perspectives and what people have shared, and I think I wanted to share a couple of the things that I have seen. The word trauma is overused and it's annoying. Was it really trauma, or did you blow something small out of proportion in your head? I see the word trauma tossed around these days way too much. Do people understand what trauma actually is and seriousness of being traumatized? I feel like kids these days use it to justify feeling victimized by the inconveniences of life rather than as a label to help people recover from actual trauma. There is a difference, and misusing it leads people from a path of perseverance to interference. Edit. No, I'm not talking about jokes on the internet here. Those aside, I'm referring to people seriously referring to small inconveniences in their life or normal things that happen in life as traumatic and adopting a victimization mindset. So, first of all, I wanted to add that when I was experiencing or talking about my previous long-term relationship, and now that I'm in a new relationship, so there were a lot of things that I noticed that I had experienced in my last relationship that weren't, I guess, necessarily great, but I would use the word trauma as just to describe like something that had bothered me or a pattern that I had noticed in my new relationship that I was I guess similar in the past. And to be honest, like, that's not trauma. And again, I'm speaking from my own personal experience, but I have experienced hardships. And now that I'm looking back at it, I don't really think it's trauma, really, because I was able to move on from that, and maybe because I did have the tools. For example, when I used to live with my aunt and uncle and cousins, sometimes they would hit us with like a belt. And again, this is not like, this was in Panama, and I know it's a little different. Like, child abuse is definitely a problem, but I think society there doesn't really see it as abuse. And to be honest, like, yeah, that was like pretty, at the moment, yes, it was traumatizing, but it's not something that like, that experience itself didn't really alter me or change me or give me any type of like I guess, what is it? It's kind of like when something really bad happens to you and you have like that reoccurring memory and it never goes away. To be honest, it went away. Like, and even like my mom used to discipline me sometimes, and that really didn't change me at all. And again, this is not to like invalidate other people's experiences, because I'm speaking for my own personal experience, and I know for a fact that if I can admit that I have used this word without any actual meaning behind it, I'm sure someone else can see and look within themselves and realize, oh yeah, I don't think I've actually experienced this. But again, it's not to say that we should go around questioning people's traumas or questioning why they're using that word, because I'm not the trauma police. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, you weren't traumatized, oh, to you that's trauma. And I think I'm going to read a couple of examples here that will be more clear, I guess. But someone said trauma, PTSD, depression, anxiety, you name it, they're just buzzwords now. Yeah. Someone else said, to be honest, as someone who has CPTSD and real triggers, it's upsetting because I need to use words like trauma or trigger to communicate my discomfort or to remove myself from upsetting or triggering situations. It's a big problem for all mentally ill folks though. People use OCD and bipolar to be funny, just like they use traumatic or triggering. It's not funny. My trauma almost killed me. You aren't traumatized for watching someone get slapped across the face. You literally see worse stuff on the news and movies. There's another comment here that I found really interesting too, which is kind of me showing you that, okay, yeah, it's being overused, but also it doesn't mean that you should invalidate other people's experiences, because again, people are just very complex individuals, so it's really, I don't think that we should generalize. But again, I feel like being aware of the language that we use and being careful about who we're saying it to is really important. This person said, though I agree that the word trauma is often overused, I think it's valuable to consider that you don't have to have all the context and that different things traumatize different people. Very true, I agree with this. You might hear a teenager say having a curfew was traumatizing, which is a pretty absurd thing to say. But if you see it posted on a thread about abuse, you should assume context of abuse. Having a curfew didn't traumatize them. However, the curfew was never consistent. One day the curfew would be 9 o'clock and the next day would be 10. And the parent would call and change their mind and say, actually the curfew is 8 o'clock now at 7:55. Then punish them for not meeting it. Often they were told that the curfew was 11, only to get an angry phone call at 9 p.m. where the parent screams as to where the child is, insisting that the curfew was actually 8:30. Twice the child was late to no punishment, but once the child was late and slapped across the face. This is only a part of a pattern of gaslighting and inconsistency that existed the child's life. That is traumatizing. Verbalizing and recognizing patterns like this is hard, so often comes out as a blanket statement like curfews are traumatizing, when there's so much more to it. You don't have to have the full story, so best not to judge. I definitely agree with this, but again, I'm coming from a place of saying the word loosely without meaning it. So again, I'm sure there are people that are like this, and I'm just saying again, just be conscious of the language that you use. I also like what this person said too. Also, I want to add that pathologizing every emotion not only waters down the meaning of each, but also makes it hard for people to determine if they actually do have, say, depression and actually should be seeking proper care treatment. There's a fine line between normalizing something so it's socially acceptable, not frowned upon, and overusing it to the point where it loses its meaning and value as a label to help people. This right here, like when I read it, I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm definitely a part of that problem. For some reason, millennials and now Gen Z feel the need to pathologize their emotions and experiences. Sad equals depressed, scared equals anxious, experience equals trauma, disagreement equals gaslighting, difficult equals toxic. The words on the right side used to be reserved for especially severe cases, but they are now used as a baseline. I think it's because we were taught that our experiences are only valid if we can heighten them with pathological language, and I really don't like it. So I'm gonna leave it at that. Of course, you can form your own thoughts and opinions, but I thought these were really interesting conversations. And again, even I have used the word PTSD lightly. So yes, I am admitting that there is some hypocrisy, but I'm human and these are things that I'm hearing repeatedly, therefore I will subconsciously say them. And I can say the same thing for how I learned cursing. I started cursing literally in the 2nd grade because I would hear the words around me so often, and so I just think that language is very contagious, and again, I think we really need to be careful about what we say and who we say them to. And also, like, I have some notes that I wrote here that I wanted to share. Basically, I had put, if I can admit that I haven't experienced any actual trauma, then I'm sure someone else could, because I have taken the time to look within and examine my own experiences to realize that I have experienced hardships and tough events, but they haven't changed or altered my perception of myself or the world, which is why I can safely say that I have not experienced trauma, and I really don't wish it upon anyone. It's, again, this is someone who's speaking from an outsider's perspective. And also, just before I wrap this video up, I also found this helpful, and I'm gonna put it up somewhere over here, about some examples of trauma as well, just so that we can be clear of what that is. So there's that. I feel like this was kind of all over the place. I just think that we should be just conscious and careful about what we say and how we say it. It's not like if I hear someone say, oh, I'm traumatized, or like, oh, that was traumatic, I'm not gonna be like, oh, like, what trauma did you experience? Like, I'm not gonna question that at all, because that's again, I'm not the trauma police. That's, if you yourself truly believe that that was what you had experienced was a traumatic event, and yeah, even if it, like that other person said, like, it could sound like a blanket statement, like you don't know them, and who are you to tell me, or yeah, it's basically like, who are you to tell me like what I have experienced and what I have not experienced. But again, if I can be self-aware enough to realize that I haven't experienced any trauma and I've been using it lightly, I'm sure someone else can. I feel like I said this before. That is all. Again, like, I'm sure there are some things that I could have said better. I'm still kind of learning how to communicate effectively and clearly. But yes, if you liked this video, and if you'd like to start a conversation and tell me about your experiences and things that you've heard, please comment down below, like this video, subscribe. It really helps me and motivates me to keep making videos like this and just talk about things that I feel uncomfortable talking about with other people or friends, or I don't know. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys.